Like,
Well, hello. Good
hello,
evening, Kim.
Claire.
How are you post-trial day today?
I'm okay.
Okay, that's good. I'm going to be asking you that every day. I'm going to
I
be asking
know.
everybody I
You're
talk
gonna be
to.
like Judge Werner. Are you okay
I
today?
I am. I'm going to be. He's so kind. Like got that. First of all, he's got that voice, and he's got that this very caring old. He's got a nice look to him. Let's say that. I
He
know one of my
he
other
does.
friends and I. That's the kind, like that look, that voice, that thing we go for. But also his rulings and his just the way he speaks to everyone and how caring he is with everyone around him in the
Right?
court, especially the court clerks and the people that are helping him around the bench. He's always asking after them every day. Are
Every
you
day.
okay? Are you good? You good with this?
Right.
But yeah, I have to say I'm enjoying. I enjoy hearing his voice in the thing often,
I do too.
often. It's a little calming for me. And his rulings have
It's a
been
comfort
mm,
thing.
his rulings have been pretty spot on. But hey, first of all, for everyone that is still following with us on this one, thank you for the encouragement. I do appreciate the DMs of encouragement I've been getting. I do hear you. This case is horrid. The evidence is horrid. The statements that the witnesses need to make is horrid. The whole thing is horrid. The whole premise of the case is horrid.
It
I get that.
is.
I
It's hard.
actually I get that, but the point of covering this one is that Letecia don't get away with this. Like pulling that insanity card, writing the judge, doing whatever you want, thinking you're the smartest person in the room while you're creating havoc everywhere. Yeah, that's why we're still following it. I want to see it to
Yes.
the end now. I really do. But it's been difficult. So on that, this will be the only like warning. I just give one. Everyone who follows my channel knows we use the real language, the real testimony, the real words. We think it's important for context. However, I totally understand. Everyone has their boundaries. Everyone has their issues that they may or may not want to uh hear talked about or anything like that. So I say first and foremost, everyone protect yourselves the best that you can. Be responsible for your own mental health. You start feeling a little then no harm no foul, please. I want you to
Yes.
take care of yourselves first. No need to chat, no need to apologize, no need to anything. You do what you need to do to take care of yourself
Yeah.
first
No, we
and
definitely
primary. Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, totally. Because you know, uh, it can be very difficult.
It can.
Uh, Uh, yeah, it can. Let me just, I got a few tags here. I'm going to take care of these few tags before we get into it, because after that, it's going to be difficult. I'm going to try.
It
I'm going to
will.
say, if you have a question while we're talking about a witness, please try to at me or Kim, so that we see it right away. And if Kim, if you could help me with that, because once we start going,
I definitely will.
there's so many. But Aunt Chair, I'm not sure if I saw that comment. I will go and look afterwards on the defense opening statements. But if it has anything to do with this insanity thing and about, like, it was crazy. It was like they were just like, that dramatics that he did. He's gonna leave because he doesn't want to be there. I'm like, okay, go. Like, what was the big deal? It was so, that was Will Cook, and I was just like, really? Here we go
Yeah.
with this? Like, man, I thought Cohen in the Masterson trial was all pomp and circumstance, but these two are like, I don't know. It's like they're there, but they know they've got this big mountain to climb, and it's just they're
Right.
just doing what they can, because I mean, it is up to the state to prove that she was of her right mind,
Oh, yeah, it
you
definitely
know,
is.
because they're not contesting. They're not contesting she
No,
did it. They're not contesting at all. Okay, so thank
but
you
I
for
feel
the
like a lot of
honors.
times they're just phoning it in.
Yes, I think so. A lot of times, and a lot of times they don't have questions. But here's the thing: they're saving it too, because what are they going to question if she's already said she's guilty? All we're doing is
Exactly.
getting in all of this evidence to prove what she did and how. The reason they have to get it all in there is to prove how she acted in, and the steps that she took and the things that she did. Unfortunately, the whole crime has to be laid out to be able to do that. It's
Right.
very frustrating because people are like, well, why do we have to see all these? Like, she said she did it. So what are you trying to prove it again to me? Um, and what are you trying to prove it over again? But they're not. They need to prove it to show the steps that she took to actually not be implicated and to cover up, and like the
Right.
that she gave. Like, it's all pertinent in the end. And unfortunately, a lot of the graphic stuff we have to cover next is part of it. Before we jump right into that, Kim, let me just say, Aunt Chair, thank you. Oh, I see the one where you. Okay, Aunt Chair says she linked a YouTube channel of someone who actually had DID, who is also a great
Oh,
communicator. Maybe you could have her on to talk about it. Aunt Chair, I will check that up because I would love to have that conversation with someone, especially since they are now bringing it up in this trial. I will definitely check
yes.
that out. Thank you so much for the lead and the link to the video. I will go check that out after the stream. I appreciate it. Okay. Okay, so on that, thank you everybody coming in. If I didn't say hi to you individually, I do see you all there, and I'm glad you're here because Kim and I just got a lot. Kim, first of all, Friday, right? It was Good Friday, and we had
It
full court
was.
because we didn't have court Thursday. We did our last update on Thursday, which
Right.
was Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday's testimony all together, which was a lot of phone calls, and then
Right.
a full day of witnesses. Okay, but now has okay. First of all,
Oh,
Michael Allen, prosecutor, yo,
yes.
slow your roll, dude.
Right.
Slow your roll. 21 witnesses in 2 days.
I know.
Okay. All right.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And then at the I just caught the last of today, and he was saying, the judge was saying, prosecutor Allen, like, are you a little bit ahead of the game here? Like, what can we
I
expect?
know.
And he goes, well, I'm trying to get up speed because the next couple are going to go on and on and on. Like, he basically
Yeah.
said the next ones are going to drag it out when they get into the psychological analysis
Right.
of what's going on. Like, when they start getting into her psyche and stuff like that, it's going to go a little further. But yeah, today they decided, well, we might be a little bit ahead, but
Yeah. But I have felt
we'll
like
see.
I'm just starting to write down my notes and the
Mhm.
witness is walking off the stand.
I know, right? But it's going that fast. But let's talk. Okay, so we started Friday morning with a warning. And I'll read the warning. Like, the judge, like,
Yes.
Yeah, the judge put it out like right away. Okay, before the jury even got there was a big discussion that sensitive photos were going to be shown today. It's the scene of Gannon's body, how it was found in Florida, okay, and as well as the clothing, and that the suitcase is going to be brought in, and it's going to
Yes.
still have the decomposing fluid on it because they kept it in the freezer all this time,
Right.
and they're going to bring it in, but it will be in a plastic bag. But as soon as they bring it in, it's going to smell, and we got to get it in. Everybody look at it, and we got to get it out.
And we
And they
gotta
made
get it
this.
out.
They made this whole contingency plan on how to de-stink the courtroom.
Yes.
That was in the morning before the jury got there, and then they sat the witness, and the jury came in, and of course they sat the witness, and the witness at this time is Kelly Smith, and she's a crime scene technician, right, from Santa Rosa County, Florida, which is
Yes.
is on the border of Escambia, right, but right, like,
Right.
the problem is the bridge where everything was found is right on the border of Escambia and Santa Rosa. So
Yes. It's right on
sometimes
that
you'll
county
yeah.
line.
So sometimes you're going to hear from Escambia police and enforcement officers and things like that, the bridge technicians, and then other times you're going to hear from the Santa Rosa County uh, law enforcement agencies and stuff like that, depending on who had the bigger or the most or whatever. Like they were like divvying everything up, you know. So it gets a
Right.
little confusing, but just
Yeah,
just
because
keep
Santa
track of it.
Rosa County is larger than Escambia.
Absolutely, and of course, for something like a decomposing the body, in for forensics and for photography and for getting all the pictures and all, they went with they called over to Santa Rosa. She went over there, so they pretty much took over the case right there. But
Right.
yeah, do you want to start with your notes on
I
Kelly
will
Smith?
start with
Okay, go
Kelly
ahead.
Smith, who does work for the Santa Rosa County, Florida Sheriff's Office as a crime scene technician. Um, Great resume, great background, has been qualified as expert witness before. Um, they were called to go to the Escambia River Bridge. They were actually briefed by previous witness, Detective Yoder,
Mm-hmm.
and they were told to locate a suitcase with a body.
Mm-hmm.
So she was able to see the suitcase and what she thought was just material
Mm-hmm.
laying kind of in and beside the suitcase.
Yeah.
She was able to view it from a couple of different views.
Mm-hmm. And she was fairly new to crime
She
scene
was.
processing. But it was one of her main jobs is just documentation, photograph, collect and package any evidence, take fingerprints and DNA samples. And then I was surprised to hear she goes with the body to autopsy to the coroner.
I was
Yeah,
surprised to hear that
yeah.
also. Yeah,
Um,
because prior to this, she was a 911 dispatcher.
Yeah, for 13 years. For 13 years,
Yeah,
I was like, yeah. But then she took the classes and everything. She finished everything right in the beginning of 2020. And remember, they discovered the body on March 17th of 2020. So
yeah.
this was one of her first ones, you know.
One of her very first. And,
Yeah,
ooh,
so yeah.
I
Um
couldn't even imagine.
Yep. So it was Detective Jason Yoder, who was very well spoken on the day
Yes.
before, into what they saw. But when she first saw it from across, right, from across the bridge, she just looked at it. Just looked like a suitcase with some
Yeah,
material
what
might
she
be laying
said
next
looks
to it,
like,
right?
just some material that was inside the case and some of it outside of the case.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then they moved. She was able to see it from another view, and then they moved and she was able to see it from the overhead view.
Mm-hmm. And
So,
yeah. And
go
when they
ahead.
talked about the view, they talked about bringing in the evidence exhibits. Basically
Yes.
number 7, because she's photographing everything, even from a distance. She took a
Oh,
photograph from a
everything.
distance, and as she got up, I mean, she did a really good job. Exhibits 77 through 85 are all just photographs of the scene before she touched anything. So
Right.
they are, all the way through. And then also, she did some more photographs when she went with the body to autopsy,
She
and she took
did.
those too. And
She
that was
did.
very upsetting, but
Yes.
Yeah.
And she did eventually walk down to the river's edge where the
Mhm.
suitcase was located.
Mhm.
And she was able to see the actual suitcase. And that was when she saw that it was actually a body.
Mhm. Yeah, and she yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. She did describe the suitcase as being an olive green suitcase, and that does match the findings from the previous
Mhm.
witness, Detective or Deputy Yokin, from the other day.
Mhm.
She did show a lot of the evidentiary pictures. She was
Mhm.
able to describe everything in such detail.
Mhm.
She stated that there was some level of decomp.
Mhm.
And when they asked her how she knew that, and sorry, everyone, she said it was due to the presence of maggots
It was, and there was liquid inside the
and
suitcase.
liquid
It
inside
was
the case.
evident. And even when they get later into the evidence, they start talking about the condition of um the body itself. But mainly in her testimony, they talk about basically after they what was found in the suitcase was the blanket and the pillow, the blanket and the pillow from
Yes,
his
the
bed.
blanket and the pillow.
If you recall from the previous day's testimony from the opening statements, I posted those pictures for you of the evidence of that picture that we're going to put through. And that is the blanket and the pillow that was found in the suitcase with Gannon's body.
Yes.
Um, and then there was also pictures of his clothing, the condition of his clothing, what
Uh-huh.
the tears and where the stab wounds were in the clothing on the t-shirt
Right.
that was all marked. um there was also marked that there was some defects to the pillow because there were some defects of the pillow from where a bullet went through it. It was in there. um
Yes.
right. There was also some red plastic pieces that she recovered, and they were actually parts of a bullet. um
Yes, they
they
were,
like yeah.
which makes me
They
think it was
even
a hollow point.
X-rayed the pillow when they go back to the lab to find before they actually cut it open or
They
looked inside it.
did.
They X-rayed it to see where the
They did.
projectile was in everything, which I
Right.
thought was good. They really
Yeah.
did quite a good documentation of everything they took from the scene, which was the
Oh,
suitcase,
yeah.
the body, everything separate. This particular witness, Kelly Smith, she went with the body to autopsy, and so she has pictures and can report on
Yeah.
as they found it. So she's not the one who did the autopsy. We're going to hear from
No.
someone later about that on um actually on Monday, right?
Right.
On Monday's
And
testimony. Yeah,
right.
go ahead.
And the autopsy was done at Sacred Heart Hospital, actually in
Mhm.
Pensacola, which is in Santa Rosa County.
Mhm.
Again, like Claire said, Miss Smith was able to speak to defects in the pillow, which
Mhm.
were two bullets were found in there on X-ray.
Mhm.
She also was able to speak about the defects in Gannon's T-shirt, some of
Mhm.
which were considered defects due to decomp staining, and
Mhm.
others were due to um, sharp instruments.
Right, along with his jacket because he was still
Yeah,
wearing
along
his
with his
jacket.
jacket, and
Mhm.
everything kind of lined
And
up
there were
correctly.
at least 5 different defects in the
Yes,
jacket itself, going through.
yes,
And the important part of that testimony is because she was able to line up what she photographed as far as the defects in the clothing and all, and then back at autopsy, they correlated to when the clothing was removed to the wounds underneath,
right.
like,
Everything
and
correlated.
everything. So, yeah, so everything just
And she even talked
correlated
about his
together.
Minecraft tee that he
Mhm.
was wearing,
Yeah.
and that just broke my
Mhm.
heart.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
it's a child. Everything that they
it is a
mention in
child.
regards to his age gets me
Yeah,
going,
it
you
is a
know.
child.
Um, yeah. Well,
We don't know the
they
calibers yet. They haven't given us
mm-mm,
that. We're still waiting
mm-mm,
on ballistics. Um, she said it was a nylon type jacket. I believe it.
mm-hmm,
She said it was silver, and his pants were the nylon athletic type. She described them as having 2 white stripes down each leg.
Mhm.
Again, we had decomp staining on that.
Yep.
The
Mhm.
She did say that all of the clothing was heavy with decomp and it was
Mhm.
very odorous. Um, I don't
And
believe they
and that
brought clothing into the court.
No, they did not. All of the
No.
items recovered from the suitcase, including the blanket, the pillow, the body itself, and everything the body was wearing, were covered in decomposition fluid, which is quite
Mhm.
odorous. And
Quite
so they
odorous.
brought photos of all of that
They
instead.
did.
With the
They did.
exception of the suitcase itself. They
Yes, and they
they
did
did
bring in
bring
the
the
suitcase.
suitcase.
They wanted
They
that
did bring
seen.
the they brought it towards the window, towards the witness, and you could see the size and shape of it, but not it's in a plastic bag. They did not take it out of the
Yeah,
plastic bag.
and it was
So
opened
mhm.
in the
So they
bag.
right, and they did take it to the jury, okay, before taking it out of the courtroom,
They did.
okay.
They
They
kinda
did let
showed
them
it to
look.
the jury.
Yep. But the witness did point out the broken handle in,
The
like,
broken
the
handle.
defect and the
Mhm.
staining, but, and that was
Yeah.
it. And then she was specifically asked what was inside the suitcase, and she said Gannon's remains, 2 blankets, and a
Uh-huh.
pillow. They were all
Yeah, she
inside.
verified all
Yeah.
of the
Mhm.
items that
Right.
were at the bridge
Mhm.
that went with him
Yeah.
then.
And then they
She
asked her
verified
about the various
everything.
bridges in the area,
They
and
did.
I think that was based on the prior cross-examination
I think it
question
was
by the
too,
defense
where
from the
yeah,
other day when they were like, well, from the bridge inspectors, they were like, well, were there lights? Was there a lot of traffic? Whatever. And it's like, no, they were like, no, they confirmed again that the Escambia River Bridge is the less traveled bridge of all
it
the
is
others
the
in the
less
area,
traveled
especially in the
at
late at night
night
or the early hours of the
because
morning.
it is
Mhm.
dark
All right.
and
And
it is in a marshy
yeah.
area.
And
I
so
mean, it's
it wasn't
right in the bay of the Gulf.
exactly. So, like, it wasn't surprising that for this one, since the prosecution already brought up the bridges, uh, actually, defense had no cross examination for Kelly Smith with
No,
all of
they
that
had no
evidence.
questions.
We
But
went from 77 to 143
yeah,
pieces of evidence, photographs. They had
yeah,
not one question, not
not
one. So
a
they are not
single
contesting it. Yeah,
question.
yeah, they're not contesting a lot of that
No.
at
But we
all.
did get some great jury questions.
Yes, okay, that's what I was gonna say. Do you wanna take the jury questions?
Yes.
I saw 2.
So
I saw 2. Yeah,
that was
go
all
ahead.
there was 2.
Mhm,
So the first question from the jury was the suitcase cleaned? It appears
mhm,
clean.
mhm,
And the answer was no, it was not cleaned. It was, as Kelly or as Miss Smith said, it was kind of hard to see through the plastic.
mhm, but it's definitely
The
not
sec-
cleaned, it's stained, yeah.
it was not cleaned. No.
Mhm,
The second question was a timeline question. And they said, you visited the recovery site on 3/17/2020. An autopsy was on 3/18/2020. Are those 2 dates accurate?
mhm,
Yes, was her response. Then they asked, so you already know on 3/18/2020 that it was Gannon. And her response was, we didn't know for sure. They went by some pictures and not sure what their procedures are for identification.
mhm,
So then Alan got back up and he said, so the ID of the remains at that time was still tentative. And she said, yes.
mhm.
And he
He
said,
said that
so the
mhm,
finalized came sometime later.
mhm.
Yes.
It did, because we know from prior testimony also that they used teeth and DNA in
Yes.
photographs, and then they had the body identified by a family member, but we know that
Yeah.
from the
Yeah. Because
testimony
that's
that we
actually
heard
coming
prior.
up next.
Mhm. That is. Okay. So Let me just check the chat really quick here. Do you see any questions for us in regards to her?
Um,
Let's just see.
I didn't see any that really had us
hmm
tagged.
Hi, Shill. Nice to see you. Mm.
Hey to
Don't
everyone that I've
the
missed. I'm
stripe hide the
sorry.
Velcro? Yeah. I know, Michelle, it is very, very awful. Crazy? Yes. Of course, there's going to be like, maggots, flies, all of that. They can tell how long something's been there by bot fly larvae in the development of
Yeah,
insects. Yep. hmm
yeah. And there's some,
Okay.
there's
Here's a
some good
question for you.
information out there about that.
Yeah. Why do athletic plants always have stripes down the sides of the legs? Does it make you run faster? I don't know.
I don't
I
know. I'm not
don't
a
know.
runner.
I've always wondered that. That's why I put that up there, although it's not really like trial,
I
but,
think
but
it's more
yeah,
of a visual thing.
yep. And Mrs.
I don't
Cassandra wants
know.
to have a public execution. No, I don't think we can.
No,
But I
I
hear
don't think
you.
so.
It is hard, Cass. It's a very difficult trial.
It's
I get it.
very difficult.
Mm-hmm. All right.
It
Hey, maybe
is.
good to see you too.
There are
Okay.
times that I'm having,
Mhm,
even though, for those of you that don't know, I work a normal 8 to 5 job, Monday through
mhm,
Friday. And I'm listening to this at the same time and trying to make notes and do my job. And it's a lot. It's a lot for my brain to handle, my little
mhm.
pea-sized brain.
Yep.
But there are times I'm having to pause the video
Mhm,
and just get up and walk away because
mm.
it gets to me, and I'm not gonna let myself fall apart at work, even
Mhm.
though I'm
Yeah. Oh,
here
no,
in the
I
comfort
wouldn't.
of my
Oh,
home.
absolutely. And that's what I say. Like, I'm not even watching it as it's happening. I don't believe in
Uh-huh.
live anymore. Like, no, I'm not watching it as it happens.
Yeah.
I'm going and taking it in my own time when I feel ready for it with a cup of tea, go through a little bit, go after. I'm reading more about
Yeah.
it, going back and checking. I'm just not letting it consume me like those
Right.
first couple of days where we were just on like 8 hours straight, and I'm
Oh,
just like,
yeah.
no, well, that ain't
Yeah.
going to be, there's not going to be 6 weeks of that. I can tell you, I don't like the way that felt. No way, no
Yeah.
how.
I
So,
know.
that's why I tell everybody, just, do what you can. Unfortunately, these two cases are two of mm, the
They're
worst
the
that
worst.
I have had to, since being out here on YouTube, even talk about. And if like I said, as long as you guys are supportive of it and who want to talk about it, I will. But if you
Yeah.
guys pull the plug, I'll pull it with you. Like, I'm with you. Like,
I know.
I
But,
I don't
you know
even like the hashtag Letecia anymore, to tell you the truth.
no,
I
I don't either.
hashtag Gannon. I'm
Gannon.
so done. I'm so
Justice
done
for
with
Gannon.
Pouty Puss. I call her Pouty Puss over in the
I
corner
know.
there, doing her play acting, whatever the heck she's doing over there. I don't want to hear it, especially when I see the Facebook tits. I'm getting ahead of myself. When I
Yeah.
hear all the stuff that she did while everything was going on. But do you want to talk about Trevor? Trevor Selford?
Yes. I
What
would
is it?
love to
Seifert?
talk about
Selfert?
Trevor Seifert.
Yeah. Yes.
Seifert.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's witness
Um,
number 2
Witness
on
number
Friday.
2, senior crime analyst with Florida Department of Law Enforcement. He's been 17 years with that agency.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, does he have a resume. BS in biology, PhD in microbiology and immunology. Um, he's done a lot of training in forensic DNA analysis. He
That's
had
the word
done,
that got me. Yeah.
oh,
Forensic
yeah,
DNA
yeah.
analysis. That gets
He's
me
done
every time.
hundreds of cases, but he says they actually count samples, not cases. And he
Mm-hmm.
has tested over 8,000 samples,
Mm-hmm. Well, more
which is
important than
pretty
that,
normal,
he,
actually. It sounds
he's
like a lot,
actually,
but it's pretty normal.
yeah. And more importantly than that, he's qualified as an expert in the state of Florida
55 times in Florida.
55 times, and he's not old. Like, and I believe
No.
David, Was it David Young for the prosecution on this one? I
It
believe
was
that,
Young.
okay, the second chair,
It
yeah,
was.
he took over.
Yes.
So basically, I'm assuming that most of his testimony was explaining how they test the DNA and what they do and
It
why
was
they
a
do
lot
it.
about DNA, a lot of talk about
Mhm,
DNA. He explained the different markers and gender markers. He talked about the uniqueness of DNA,
mhm,
where we find DNA in the body, that it's
mhm,
basically in every fluid and every tissue, all of your, bone matter, everything. Even like something you touch or come in contact with, you may have flaking of the skin or
mhm.
oils, and that will contain small amounts of DNA also. So we can find DNA a lot of different places. They did ask him if a profile can be created if there are no known identities, and he said yes. So then he
Mhm.
talked about the difference between known and unknown, and he said basically it's comparing it in all of these different databases that we have now,
Mhm.
and
And
that's
that's
why
basically, yeah.
yeah, that's
So
why so
basically,
many
he
of these
was
cold cases are getting solved.
right. And so basically, he's not doing the DNA for the whole case. He's doing the DNA to identify the body because at that point they weren't
Yes,
sure 100% that it was Gannon. So they had
right.
to prove it. They had to verify it. They know that Gannon's missing. They know he matches the basic size, hair color, and date of
Uh-huh.
missing and possibility. But they
Yeah,
have to test, like they got to get dental
right.
records, they got to get an identity, and they've got to do DNA testing to
Yeah.
actually
And,
remove Gannon from the missing
he
list. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
and, like, he actually Dr. Seifert actually knew they probably were not going to get good DNA samples,
Well,
and they
because of
may not be able
yeah.
to make a
Mhm.
complete match. So,
But they do familiar matches. There's many things. Like
they
look at the
do.
Koberger case. They got
Yeah,
him based on his father's profile. So
unfamilial.
hey, yeah,
Yeah.
a familial. So they can
Uh-huh.
narrow it down that way. It is a very complex. Listen, Kim and I, as smart as we are, we couldn't sit here and just go over that testimony and tell you how much you can actually learn. You could learn a lot listening to that man. If
You
you'd like
can.
to,
Oh,
please
I was
go and listen to
fascinated.
him. But it
I could
was
have
really
listened to him all
just
day long.
yeah, because we're already halfway. We're a half hour in, and we're only
I
two
know.
witnesses in. We're gonna move
Yeah.
on.
So,
Let's go
let me
on
finish
to
with Seifert real
Alexis.
quick.
Yeah, real quick, and then
So,
Peck. Yeah.
Seifert, they took buccal swabs and they were able to swab a few drops of blood. They weren't able to get really any usable DNA from that. He could tell it was a decomposing body. Next, he took a rib bone. He cut it into several sections. He couldn't get
Mhm.
really anything off the bone itself. He went to the marrow. It was still very low. He did a longer
Mhm.
process for a partial profile. And that was more of how they came up with the tentative identity, and then they
Mhm.
contacted Colorado for
And
their
they could.
DNA profile that they had already done on known
Mhm.
objects of Gannon's, and
Right,
they
and
had
we're
a
able to.
match to the rib bone.
And at that point, they transferred everything to
They
Colorado.
transferred everything over to Colorado at that point.
Mhm.
Tolini had no questions. Jury had no questions.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, so I
So
believe you have Alexis Peck.
I've got
Pack.
Alexis
Pack.
Peck,
Mhm.
um, cute as she could be, and this is a stay-at-home mom from Pensacola, but she worked at the Candlewood Hotel or the
Mhm.
Candlewood Suites in Pensacola when it was alleged that Letecia stayed there. So they flew her in from Florida. She got the nervous giggles on the stand.
Mhm.
Um, she actually did not check Letecia in. A woman named Sharon, there was no last name given, checked her in. She went over the routine documents, verified that yes, that's what we use. That's what we use to check in, check out. It was like 3 pages. Letitia checked out on 2/4 of 2020. The
Mhm.
witness, um, our Miss Peck was not there when she checked in. She was unsure if Letitia checked out at the desk, she felt more like one of the staff members came and said,
Mhm.
"Hey, all of her stuff's gone. She's gone. Check her out."
Mhm. Yep.
She thinks that's what happened. The name used on the form was Letecia Stauch. She stated she was from South Carolina. She did give a name of Ford Motor Company for a
Mhm.
fixed discounted rate. So
Mhm.
she must know someone at Ford Motor Company and knew she would get a discount.
Mhm.
The vehicle driven was a Nissan Altima that they stated.
Mhm.
It was a standard queen room, and one guest was put in.
Right.
And
And
again, I don't have,
well, they entered all of the computer printout from the
yeah, they entered
registry
all
of
of
the
that into
Candlewood Suites.
evidence. Uh huh.
Right. So basically the purpose of her being on the stand, even though she
Was
did not
just to verify
actually,
that she was
just to
there.
verify that she was there and to get that record of someone checking in under the name of Letecia Stauch. Somebody wrote that name, okay, and put it in
Of
there
course.
just to get that all in there that she stayed there in the area. But
Yes.
cross-examination was interesting, yeah? Mm, real quick.
Uh, Cross was good. He said, "So you had nothing to do with check in?" I said, "I kind of like that. He's kind of
Mhm,
snobby sometimes."
mhm,
Um, and she said, "No, I don't." He's like, "Oh, okay." He said, "So you wouldn't be able to recognize the guest?" She said, "No, I don't recall ever seeing her."
mm.
Oh,
So she couldn't identify her in the room, like in
right.
the courtroom. He couldn't point to her like most witnesses and say, "Do
No,
you see Letitia Stauch in this room?" And they point to her. And she was not, and she's not pretending to. Like she's there to
no, she's
bring the
not.
evidence from the computer. That's it. Like, and so I don't know, like why they made a point about like who's gonna go and try to set Letitia up by putting her name at the Candlewood? Like, who's gonna do that? Like, I don't know. Mm,
I know.
well, yeah,
And then the
but
jury had no questions either. And then
yeah,
they
these.
took
I mean, not
they
much.
broke for a short break.
Okay. And then we went to a Lieutenant El Paso Sheriff's Office to Jason Hess. Okay. He was a deputy at the time
Yes.
of the investigation. He was a SWAT supervisor. He's been a
Uh-huh.
sergeant in a patrol division. He described his role in investigation as making phone calls to further the investigation. In other words, you know how there's always people in the background that dot the I's, cross the T's, and check the
Right?
leads?
That's him.
That guy. That guy.
That's
He's back
him.
at the station working his ass off while okay. Like people may go to
Yeah.
the scene and do what they got to do, but there's also these other group of people that are like manning the phones, taking the faxes, contacting other
Yeah.
agencies. And that was partially, from what I understand, what Jason Hess's responsibility in this investigation was. So
Right.
his
Now he did
testimony
get
was that.
face-to-face contact at one point with her, though.
Oh, he did, because he called her
Yeah.
from,
He yeah.
he called Letitia from previous call to the service and stated it was a cold call to her, just calling out, wanted to speak to Letitia or Al, verified the caller that he was speaking to was Letitia. Okay, and he did actually have face to face. Is that the one? Is that the one that met at the Starbucks? I don't think so. Okay,
Um,
what he was following
yes,
up to make
that
sure
was the
that
one that met
Gannon
at
had not,
Starbucks.
like, this is what they do. This is like he's calling to make sure Gannon hasn't returned home to see if there was any
Right?
further information to be going. He's just checking from the day before.
Yeah, it was
He
just a
gained
cold call.
Mhm. He also gained permission to publish Gannon's photo through several outlets in social media. You do need, because
Right?
it's a minor, you need the permission of the parents to get them into the computer and start pushing this stuff around. It's just all part of what they do. What they wanted to consider was, the age of Gannon. Because of the weather, it was winter, it was cold.
Yes.
And they wanted to make sure they got
That was a
extra
risk.
resources and everything. They wanted to make sure everything was going on before they put all this money. They first wanted to double check he hadn't come home overnight or whatever, and that it was still no other information. Okay.
Right.
He was
And
able to identify Letitia in court.
he
He did
was because
identify her.
he had seen
Hmm.
her. But he
Hmm.
was also one of those people that when those tips come rolling in
Hmm.
to the hotline, He's the one
Mhm.
that has to kind of fill those out.
Okay. Well, he also, because he did get an image. Somebody sent him a picture of somebody that looked like Gannon, and he had to go feather that out. He went to
Right.
the area, to the Lorson Ranch neighborhood, and he checked those areas. He figured out that was not Gannon. He canvassed the
Yes,
area. He got no further leads. He went actually to the home of Letecia Stauch at the time that he went when he seen something,
he did.
because he wanted timeline for the security camera feeds, all
Right.
and everything with the neighbors and all. So,
Yeah.
he wanted it specifically for when Letecia said that Gannon left, which was between 3:15 and 4 o'clock. Um, because she stated she was cleaning up the candle when Gannon
Uh-huh.
left the building, and she didn't know where he was going. She didn't know what friends he was going to or whatever.
Right.
But he must have left when I was busy doing that.
Yeah.
Um, so again, there were more tips, and he went back to the house again. And that's when he saw everybody packing up the white cargo van, loading
The
it with
white
items
cargo
from the home.
van,
And he saw the Nissan Altima, the rental
the
car,
Nissan
right?
Altima. Yes,
And that there were people helping load the van. That was like Harley and Letecia, their friend
I,
Brenda Ackard, the aunt,
that was the aunt,
an unknown male. They're not sure who it was, but they're thinking it was Dakota Lowry.
Dakota
But
Lowry.
mm-hmm.
Correct.
um, he had then asked Letecia if she knew where Gannon went when he had left the house, and she said, "No, I was trying to smother out the fire with a blanket from the
Yeah,
candle." You know, and that, and then she added this fact that Gannon got something on his shirt during the fire,
I know.
like
I
all
was
of
like,
just out of nowhere, just like
yeah.
here, just added
He was
that,
even
like.
kind of like, where did that come from?
Exactly. So he's cocked his head over, and here's little Lana, right? Well, he's talking to Letecia, and little Lana's there, right? And little Lana
Yeah.
points over to where Gannon's friends live. Not Letecia.
Uh-huh.
Letecia
No.
doesn't. But little
Yeah.
Lana,
Lena
the
does.
okay, she's over there pointing. Oh, one of his friends lives over there. Like she knows where they live. The little one. Yeah, she was not helpful. I think that's what they were trying to prove here. That he was like, she was not helpful.
Right.
She did not say what direction he could have went in, where his friends lived, nothing. Um, it, the prosecution was asking how many times he's worked with missing or runaways, and they
Uh-huh.
said that he had done a lot. He had done 30 or so at least.
Yeah.
He did say that he thought that Leticia's actions were not what he expected, but he didn't really go into detail.
I think
He did said he
I think he
expected to
said he
have a much more visible
a more
reaction
visible
than
reaction.
the way she was acting. But he did
Yeah,
agree that reactions can vary, you know. Um,
he
he
did.
was asked point out by the prosecution, in dealing with missing people and stuff like that, have you dealt with individuals with mental health orders? And he stated that yes, he has, but he said he did not consider her to have one since she acknowledged and answered everything appropriately. She
Right.
was very aware of what was going on. He did not consider her to have any issue at the time.
Yeah, she's
Um,
kind of free with her information.
yeah, and this is when the DID comes in, because then defense
Yes.
attorney Josh Tolini asks him, how many of the cases that you dealt with, how many of those people had DID? And he stated he could not answer that with any certainty because he doesn't
Right.
diagnose DID.
Yeah.
Um, and then, of course, prosecutor Michael Allen is not going to let that sit. He jumps
Oh,
up, he
no,
goes up,
not at all.
he goes redirect, and they said yes, and he asked one question: did Letecia Stauch appear to have DID in your, you know, amateur approximation? And he says no. Period. That's it. Just
That
no.
was it.
End of
That was
story.
it.
That's it. Yep. And the jury didn't have any questions for him at all
No,
in regards to her behavior or anything like that.
none.
And so then we went and we had the assistant DA Graziano, Angela, right?
Uh-huh. And
And
she was talking to
she
Leslie Hicks.
Leslie Hicks, the assistant principal at Mount Ridge Middle School.
Mountain Ridge
At the
Middle School.
Yeah, that's where she was at the time of the investigation.
Yes.
And the reason they're bringing her there is because Letecia had applied for a position as a
For a
resource teacher
position
there.
as a resource teacher,
Mm-hmm.
which, is similar to like a sped teacher.
Okay. And so she talked about the interview process and onboarding process and
Uh-huh.
everything like that. And
Right.
basically, what they're going to bring forward or the text messages are in regards to the position for the teacher that she was applying for. She was able to
Yes.
identify Letecia in the class in the courtroom. But
Uh-huh.
hmm, she had difficulty reaching Letecia all these
She
times.
had
Like,
a lot of trouble getting hold of some of
yeah,
her references.
her
So then
references weren't coming through. She was given
no.
different number to call or a witness
Yes,
caller
Letitia was
ID.
starting to give her different numbers, which, it's like you've got to think, your mind kind of immediately goes, well, she's probably giving family member numbers now. Is she using burner phones? One of the phone numbers that she used, the name belonging to that phone actually came up on her caller ID as
Uh-huh.
Eugene Stauch.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
Eugene is
exactly.
Al's first name.
Mhm. And so, was she actually using burner phones or different phone numbers, like to cover stuff up?
Yeah,
Her
it's like
educational background provided was crazy. She said she had a PhD from Liberty
PhD from
University.
Liberty
She signed her
University,
emails Dr.
Dr.
Stauch.
Stauch.
Oh
And
my
no
God.
one can apparently find her in the Liberty University PhD program
Mhm. Okay,
at
and then
any point.
but basically what happened is she goes through this whole process, a whole bunch of BS that could not be confirmed.
Uh-huh.
HR is starting the process to hire her because she looked so good,
Yeah.
and they're doing the
Yeah, she's getting ready to have her
confirmations,
fingerprints done,
and
everything.
she's got to come in to get the fingerprints and have the final interview, and they get a text saying that her stepfather died in a car accident, and
Yes, Miss
that's it.
Hicks got that.
Um,
And she was like,
any
well,
Yeah.
so does that
After
mean I'm not
that,
coming in tomorrow?
yeah, any further replies in text messaging with the witness came across as angry per the witness. So
Very angry.
they just decided not to have any more contact after
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
There
they
was
kinda
no
cut her off.
cross-examination by the defense on this one
Nothing.
wall.
No.
Okay, and the jury had no questions either. They were like, fine, all right. The
Yeah.
next one is real quick. We're going to get Kevin Clark. And Kevin Clark's main purpose of testifying, he's from the Fourth Judicial Attorney's Office. He works with the DA.
Yes.
He's, well qualified. He's got his bachelor's in Homeland
Oh,
Security,
yeah.
master's in project. They went through all of that. He studied phone tower, cybercrime, cell data programming, cellular analysis, all from the FBI. He's a senior
Uh-huh.
crime intelligence officer at the time of this investigation. He is the lead analyst in this investigation. He is the one who obtained the search warrants for the cell phone records, and the phone number previously given to Miss Hicks came back to
Back
belonging
to
to Gannon.
Gannon.
Okay,
Yeah,
so why was Letecia Stauch using Gannon's phone to get a job?
exactly.
What's wrong with her phone? She has a phone, right? Like, I
She
don't
has a
understand. Like,
phone.
she like, okay.
I think she
Uh,
was using it
yeah.
as a
And then,
reference number,
yeah. And so then
and probably
quickly,
either
yeah.
she or Harley would answer it.
Now that brings us to lunch really quick.
Yes.
And then we go back and we're going to hear they spent right after lunch with audio from a body cam, which is from the first, like
The
I guess you
first
call the
one
first
the
response to
with
the
Deputy
missing
Yokin.
child. With Deputy Yogan had his body cam on, and we heard that already, and we saw that
Uh-huh.
in the testimony, I think on day 2 or 3.
I think
Day
so.
3. And this is actually who came with him, Parker. This is Deputy
Parker.
Parker's much more detailed body cam,
Yes. You can actually
which
hear it much clearer
which you can. So if you guys, you want to watch on day 4 for that, it happened right after lunch. If you
right
want to like
after the lunch break.
speed trainer, but basically you're going to hear Harley more often in
Yes,
this one,
which we did not hear in the other one.
talking about, Gannon's phone, his bike, things like that. Asking questions that a sister who lives in the house should be able to answer.
Yeah, because
Okay.
we actually hear her say, "Did Gannon take his bike?"
But Letecia had said that Lana came back in about 4 o'clock to get Gannon's bike because
Yes.
something was wrong with hers.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So
It was just a much better
yeah,
recording.
the officer also noticed that the house had Ring doorbell, and he had asked if Letecia asked her about it, and she said that they don't have it recording.
They don't have it
Okay.
recording.
And so the officer says, "That's okay. Can you just give me the ID for it?" And she said she had trouble finding it.
Yeah. Well, and then he even asked her for her own ID.
And then he
Remember
said,
that?
You can just give me your name and date of birth."
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And the first time she just gave him the name Tisha
Mhm.
with
Right.
her maiden name as
Mhm.
her middle name and
Okay.
gave the date of birth. And he said, "We weren't able to find you in the system." She told them that her license was out of South Carolina. So they were looking there and they couldn't find her. And she's like, "Oh, look under Letecia."
Yeah, no, they should. They were doing. They were like trying to do the ID for the proper determination. And this is
Uh-huh.
at okay. What is very concerning here is the way that she's acting right now. Is like trying to hide her own identity. Gannon's
Yeah.
missing. This is the first contact she has with officers since the 911 call she made.
Yeah. All of this
And
seems
she
very
won't
evasive.
even give the proper information to identify
No.
the family members so Gannon can be found. This is like ridiculous. They were unable to locate her on the information that she gave in the system. She stated she was the one that called 911. And was and she was told to call back with any additional information on the non-emergent number.
Uh-huh.
Um She was asked for the picture of Gannon, and she gave one from her phone, and then she sent it
Right.
to them. Okay. Um, they did ask her if she had contacted all these friends and asked if there was anything suspicious. They went through all of that with her, and then
Yeah.
they
And
had
when
him
they asked if
classified as a runaway based on what she
right.
said because she said he left the house.
Yeah.
Right.
And when
Um,
they asked if she had been in contact with the neighbors, and she said, "Al's been in contact with the neighbors."
Yeah, she said, yes, Al has, and that's what she said. I don't have all these friends' phone numbers because Al is
Yeah.
better at keeping track of all of that, even though he travels a lot and she's got, you know, has Gannon there at the house,
You know,
doesn't have the
I
friends,
mean,
I don't
Claire,
know. It didn't make any sense. Yeah.
you're a mom and I'm a mom and a grandmother and I would be knocking on every door. I don't care if I knew you or not.
hmm She did give a physical description of Gannon. She talked about the cutting out of the carpet due to the fire candle. She told everybody about this. This is what gets
Everyone.
me. Why is she talking about the candles incident over and over and over again to every single person she comes in contact with? Like, what is that? And she said she wasn't planning on telling Al anything about it. That's why she cut the carpet up. She was gonna
Yeah.
fix something about it. Um.
Uh-huh.
Anyway,
Yeah. She
on
just
the
comes
phone.
off just I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. It's like
She
there's
she
definitely
she's
something off.
Yeah, she said, I don't know. It's really late. It's probably at a friend's house just playing games or something. But this is an 11-year-old boy. This is now like they got there at 10 o'clock at night. This is
Yeah.
now going on towards 11 o'clock before they're leaving and everything. And she's just like, oh, yeah, it's like,
I'd be in a
calm.
full-blown panic.
Exactly. So, but
Yeah. I would be in a
that,
full-blown
mm,
panic.
that was, that was basically the body cam stuff. And then after that, we went for Sergeant Christopher Gastine, and I think you had some stuff on. He's the patrol
Yes.
supervisor, right?
Patrol supervisor
Mm-hmm.
out of Metro Bureau Investigation. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where he was as a detective sergeant in 2020. He does covert surveillance.
Mm-hmm.
So he was kind of a big deal in his testimony. Um, he, I'm sorry, I'm catching up here. He started surveillance on Letecia. He made visual contact with her. He was able to ID her in the courtroom. He was told where Letecia and Harley were staying, that they were staying at the home. He was able to see the Jetta in the driveway. Um, Letecia and Harley both get into the Jetta. This was on 1/30 of 2020. Harley is driving. It's Harley's car. So she's driving. And Letecia gets into the back seat, the right passenger. So they have all these covert vehicles. They're unmarked. These
Mhm.
guys are in plain clothes. I mean, they're undercover.
Mhm.
And he started following in the covert vehicles. He said Letecia appeared kind of slumped and slouched. He said every once in a while you could kind of see the top of her head.
Mhm.
Um, and he said this is really common with people that want to avoid detection. So,
Mhm.
working undercover, they really know so much of the psycho of this.
Mhm.
Um, they followed for approximately an hour and they ended up at a shopping center that had a Marshall's. Now, occasionally he would slip up and call it Michael's, but
Mhm.
I'm sure he was still meaning Marshall's. He said Letecia and Harley both went into the store. They notified the sheriff's department. They obtained a warrant for Harley's car and a warrant for her cell phone.
Mhm.
This was all in the early afternoon. They were asked to make contact and secure the vehicle and the iPhone. Now, they don't want a bunch of officers barging into Marshalls.
Mhm.
They did have people in place in the
Mhm.
store that were keeping an eye on her,
Yeah.
on both of them.
What really fascinated me was when he approached Letitia, what she did.
Oh
Like,
my gosh,
yeah, because
yes.
yeah,
Because
because
Letitia came out of the store. Harley's still in the store.
mhm.
And he sees that Letitia has keys in her hand. He knows he cannot let her get into that car
Mhm.
because she'll be gone.
Mhm.
So he blocks it to where, with, his physical presence, to where she could not get to the door.
And she was
And
so surprised.
she
She
was
wouldn't
so
even talk
surprised.
to him. She just started
No.
backing away
Yeah,
from
she was
him.
just backing away.
He
Then
tried
she
talking to her to tell her,
yeah,
"We just got some questions for you," or
we just
whatever.
have some questions. Everything's okay.
She
And he said then she started looking behind her.
like, for
And he knew
escape,
then she
like
was
she's
looking
gonna
for an
run.
escape
Mhm.
route.
She threw the keys and ran.
She
Yeah.
ran and threw the keys in the parking lot, and you remember what he said? He said, "Took us a little while to find those keys."
Yeah, it took us a little bit, but because she just tossed them, figuring a distraction
Yeah,
and she was gonna get away. But anyway, they had so many people there in the lot already. That's when,
they
like,
did, and they
just like
did
in the
have
movies, all the lights went on and they all pulled in, so she,
oh,
like,
yeah,
couldn't go anywhere,
yeah,
you
and
know?
they did
But
also have 2
but
marked cars with
here's
the
here's the
light
thing. They
bars.
told her she wasn't under arrest, but because she
Yeah,
tried to escape, they handcuffed her.
they had they had to handcuff her
Because
because
she
now she's
tried
a flight
to
risk.
'cause she tried to walk away, and that's when
Yeah,
Harley walks out, and she's
Harley
she's
walks out then,
she's now
and
handcuffed, yelling at
yeah.
the top. She was hysterical and screaming too,
Oh, yeah,
and
and that was the word he kept using. She was hysterical,
she
and he
saw Harley come out of the store, and she started screaming at Harley right away, didn't she?
yeah,
What did she tell them what she said.
she was telling Harley, "Don't talk to anyone, don't tell them anything." And Harley's kinda like, "What do I do? What do I do? What do I do?"
She started crying too, but she didn't actually get, handcuffed, she
Harley
just
was
got moved.
scared,
She just got
and,
moved to a
they
police car,
yeah,
and, yep, and she gave over her phone and everything like
she did
they
give over
asked.
her phone. They were able to find the keys. They were able to take control of the car and the phone.
Okay, and here's the
Um,
part that really got me. They went they went in for it, right? He asked her straight out, "Do
yeah,
you believe that Letitia was suffering from a mental crisis because she was screaming and carrying on like that?"
right.
And he said, "No." And he
No.
said, "Can you explain your answer to me?" He said, he started explaining about the target glancing,
The
how she was
target
looking around for an
glancing.
escape. She was looking
Yeah.
for escape, stated that she showed that she was
A
decisions were
conscious
being
decision
made
was made at that
every
point.
moment. As soon as she
Yeah.
saw me, she started backing up. She started looking around on how she could get away. She tossed the keys one way so she could run the other way.
Uh-huh.
She was making conscious decisions. He says, I do not believe she had any faculty issue. Like, and I thought that
Right.
was good, as he took the
It
time to
was
explain
good.
it. Yeah, yeah.
And then Cook got up on
Mhm,
cross. He verified the date with him. Had he seen Letecia before, just in photos? Didn't recall seeing any photos of Harley. He verified Leticia's mannerisms in the car to avoid detection. Stated again that Harley was driving, but her driving was not consistent with someone that was trying to avoid detection. And the detective went on to explain she was following all the road rules. She was doing everything right.
mhm.
Um, Cook asked him, "Did you have a body cam?" He said, "No, it's not required." And
It's a
he,
covert act. Why would you wear a body
yeah,
cam when you're undercover?
I know.
What? Okay,
And then
yeah.
he said, "Was Harley a person of interest?" He said, "Not to his knowledge." And he asked if he was qualified in mental health. He said, "No, but I work around it."
Mhm. And so,
And
of course,
then
yeah, the redirect was good because that
the
body cam
redirect.
thing bothered me too, and I was so glad when they jumped up. He said,
Yeah.
"Why?
Oh, I
Why
was
didn't you
too.
wear a body
I
cam?"
mean,
And he said, "Because it can put undercover agents at
yes.
risk,"
And
and it
you
did.
know, Claire, I'm a mom of a Leo,
Mhm,
and my son has done covert before. And
mhm,
the last thing I would want him to do is have a body cam on if he's
mhm.
doing undercover work. It doesn't, no, because that does put them at danger.
Right,
So, and that
right.
was what he said. He said, "Would get burned. My
Mhm,
every one of my officers would be in danger at
mhm.
that point."
Right. Well, we're gonna
And then
move.
the jury had no questions for him.
No, no questions from the jury, which was good. So now we're going to go on to Leon Kelly, the MD. Now he's the coroner. He's the El
Yes.
Paso, Colorado's coroner and the chief medical examiner since 2008. Obviously, very credentialed. I'm not going to go through all his credentials because what's
Wow.
important
Yeah.
is more often is just this one's real quick. Okay, he got
Yes.
qualified as an expert. Okay, in being board certified for anatomic and clinical path dialysis and forensic path. Okay, he explained the differences in pathology and forensic pathology. Okay, he um he had his office received some teeth and a femur bone
Uh-huh.
from Gannon. They took the ball of the femur and were able to retrieve fresher marrow samples for the D analysis, and that was sent to the Metro Crime Lab. He's the one who actually helped get the DNA samples together to make sure that they could get an absolute confirmation for
Yes.
Gannon Stauch that from the body they got this marrow and it was a DNA match for Gannon Stauch. And so that was finally in final. He ID'd the DNA as Gannon Stauch's, and then that's when 100% they were absolutely that was the remains.
Yeah, that was when
Okay.
they knew.
Mhm. Okay. He it was because he also went on to again say why did they take so long, because it seems to be a bone of contention for some people as to why it took so long for them to
Yeah.
actually remove Gannon from the missing list when they had found the body. It was because they couldn't get 100%. They want to keep
Right.
looking until they get 100% match on on that DNA and that they have no doubt. And because the
And
body was in such a state of decom,
it
they were
was
having
harder
some
to get the
difficulties with
DNA.
that. Right. And so they had to get the teeth, they had to get everything together. And that's what happened. It took a few more days than
It did.
that some people would have liked, but people were still actively out there looking for Gannon at the time. Um,
They were.
so the cross from Will Cook, from the defense, he
Oh my
asked
gosh.
about the odor of decomp, and Dr. Kelly stated there would be odors, and he gave testimony as to how soon the odors would set in, like at 70 degrees, on an average day. Remember, this is
Right.
March, okay, and the body it's a cold time. Even in Florida, it's a little chillier than usual, but not much, okay. 70 degrees, 3 to 5 days. Asked if the odors would be overpowering. He stated they Oh, probably asking the wrong person since he's used to it. And the courtroom kind of laughed at that
Yeah,
because
even
they're
the
like,
judge laughed.
you're going to ask the coroner if the smell bothers him? It's what he does, like day in and
I
day out.
mean,
Like,
come
okay,
on.
you know,
It's
um,
like all they're
mhm,
smelling most of the day is body odors and mentholatum because you
mhm,
rub that fix right under your
mhm.
nose.
Mm. And so they did say that, yes, it would have been quite overpowering. Okay. And I
It
think
would.
for me, I don't know about anybody else, but when the defense is going on this line about, they were asking about water with the bridge guy, they were asking about the level of decomp with the body and everything. They're trying to act like the body couldn't have been with Letitia in this state. People would have smelled it. Like,
Right.
while it didn't, if it's now March 17th, it hadn't been there the whole time. What was she doing with it? Like, she would have got discovered. Like, it couldn't have been her because she would have got caught. And no, actually, they say, yeah, it would have been overpowering, but on redirect, prosecution asked if the body could have been frozen, if that would delay the decomp and the odor, and the answer was yes. Gannon was reported missing in January. Would that limit the decomp? Yes. Would the insulation of the suitcase and blankets limit the odor? Yes. In other words, he went in January and it's cold. Okay. If the body was frozen, if the body is covered in blankets, it's inside the suitcase, all of these things, that's why nobody traveling by would have smelt it or anything like that, um, is what you're saying. But then the jury did have a question for this witness. Hold on. What impact does humidity have on decomp? And Dr. Kelly stated that the humidity can cause a slight increase and alter the type of decomp. Explained it as adipocere. Later asked to spell
Adipocere.
for the record, adipocere. Okay, which is
Adipocere.
just,
Mhm.
yeah, that the wetter it is, the faster it can
Right.
decompose. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the translation for that one. I can't say the word, but I know what it means. Okay,
Adipocere.
but so so there we go with that. Okay, so I believe you have Williams now, don't you? Yeah.
Marissa Williams with Gratiano again. And she works for the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. She's been with them for 11 years. She does a lot of the financial stuff with them,
Mm-hmm.
um, getting financial records and everything. And part of her job was tracking financial records of both Letecia and Al. She did apply for search warrants. She worked with both the DA and the FBI on this. Um, let's see. She interviewed um, at the El Paso County Sheriff's Department with Detective Mark Riley. They interviewed Al.
Mm-hmm.
She and Detective Mark Riley interviewed Al. She only saw part of the interview with Letecia. She did not see the full interview that they did at El Paso. Um, she did was able to see Letecia at the sheriff's office and said that she acted very evasive with her when she was
Mm-hmm.
questioned.
Well.
Um, yeah, she said that Letecia came across as a parent of a missing child, not as concerned with finding the child, but more bothered with and more concerned with her own well being and how she was being presented to everyone else.
Hmm.
She was asked, did she answer questions confidently or competently? And she said yes. She asked for her overall awareness and demeanor. And she said that, her demeanor seemed a little bit off because she was just so focused on how she was being perceived.
Mm-hmm.
But she felt that Letecia was understanding everything that was being asked for her.
Mm-hmm.
She also talked about the other documents, the Avis rental. The witness actually, they gave her a copy of the rental agreement. And did you notice, Claire? They gave her the wrong rental agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm.
they gave
Well.
it for another vehicle. Um, she said, who at Avis was she in contact with? And this was when she said, this is actually a different contract, so I'm not sure. She did say that the one that she was talking about was from 1/28/2020. It was a signed agreement for the Kia Rio, and it was used for 1 day. That would have been the car that she used to pick Al up at the airport.
Exactly. Hmm.
Uh-huh. And um, they did ask her, with all of these financial documents, are you able to track charges? And she said yes. There was no questions on cross and no jury questions. So she was kind of up and down fairly quick also. They just kind of wanted to, you know, verify a few documents with her.
Right. Right. So that was in and out. I think you have the next one too. Is it
I do,
Sanchez?
Janine
Yes.
Sanchez.
Okay.
Uh-huh. And she was asked questions by Alan, the DA. She's from Colorado Springs. She was actually Harley's coworker, and they had to almost prompt her to get answers out of her.
It
She and
seemed like
Harley
she
both
did
worked
not want
together.
to um hurt her friend Harley. She's Harley, the
Yeah, I
daughter's
don't think
friend,
she did either.
right?
Yeah, I don't think she wanted. I think she felt like she was almost going against Harley if she even said something against Letecia. She was Harley's coworker. They were both receptionists at Massage Envy. She
Mm-hmm.
also lived in Lorson Ranch, the same subdivision where the Stauchs lived. She was a couple of years older than Harley. They did go to some Bible study other than working together. She said, other than that, they really didn't socialize that much, other than sending some text messaging and TikToks to each other. She described Harley as being nice, shy at first, but um, then very social, positive, good personality, and bubbly. She never went to her home or met her family prior to when she went with Harley to pick Letecia up from the hospital. She asked if she became aware that Gannon was missing, and she said that she received a text from Harley about Gannon being missing. Um, she actually said on one of the very first questions, I don't remember many dates. So
Mm-hmm.
they'd give her a date. She's like, I don't remember. I don't recall. And they were like, well, if we show you this, or do you remember this happening? She's like, oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's when it was.
Yeah.
Um, she was shown a report from a detective with info on the last time that she saw Harley. She asked about Harley's demeanor. She said she was frantic. This was on 1/29 of 2020. She said she wasn't her usual self. She was asked if Harley was crying. She said yes. Now she went with Harley to pick Letecia up from the hospital. She didn't
Mm-hmm.
remember what hospital, just said it was in the downtown area of the Springs. She and Harley were in the front. Letecia got into the middle seat in the back. She said Harley was just acting normal. She
Mm-hmm.
did ask, she was asked if Harley's demeanor changed once Letecia got in the car. She said no. But then she kind of changed that later and said that she was quieter than normal.
Mm-hmm.
She also said that she seemed timid and overwhelmed. Um, she
I
said
think,
that she had calmed
mm,
down a little bit though.
yeah, but I did, you know what? She had so much more to say about Letitia's behavior, though. Um,
She did. She really
turn,
did.
turning off location services on cell phones.
Yes.
Okay.
Letitia asked for Harley's phone and
Mm-hmm.
told her, she said, I'm going to turn off your location services. And
Mm-hmm.
so they asked Harley, they're like, do you know what location services does? She said, yeah, you can find people and use Google Maps.
Yeah. And also that Letitia was using Harley's phone, not her own,
Harley's
and
phone.
to send text messages to people.
Yes.
Um,
In fact, let, Janine got one that looked like it came from Harley,
but it was from Letitia and it was
but it
while they
was
were
from
still in the car.
Letitia.
and
Yes.
she was right there and could talk to her, but she said to her text, I don't know, that was a little odd.
Yeah.
But
It was something about sorry that sorry that I'm having to stay at your home.
yeah, can we
Something like
come,
that.
and my mom could stay, and can my mom stay with you as well? But that
Yeah,
was
and can
from
my mom
Letecia.
stay?
Okay, so she gets the text message while Letecia has Harley's phone. Okay.
Yes.
This is supposed to be coming from Harley. It's so weird. I don't know.
It was
That
so
was
weird.
very,
And
very
do
that
you
was very
remember
weird.
what Letecia said to her? She said, "I hope you don't think we're a bunch of murderers."
Yeah, that was kind of like
And she
funny.
said that
But
that felt like a
mhm.
really weird statement for someone
Yeah.
that
But
she
I
had
am
never
glad
met.
I am glad they pushed back and they asked, like, well, how did you think? Like, did they talk about why they wanted to stay at your house? And she said, no, not really. And then she said, well, what did you think about that? She goes, well, I did think it was odd since Gannon was missing. Like, why are
Yeah.
they, since
Yeah.
everybody's going to be coming to their house with any
Right?
news, why are they staying
Yeah.
someplace else? Like, it didn't make any sense
I
to
know.
her.
She did say at one point that Harley told her when she asked her again, "I just don't feel comfortable at my house."
Mm,
And she said Harley never really went into any more
mm-mm,
with that.
mm-mm.
Um,
And she said she didn't notice after they got to the house, they stayed there, and she didn't notice any strange noises or anything out of the normal.
no.
She just let them get settled, and she just went upstairs and just let them relax or whatever. She just like,
Yeah.
but it did
Yeah.
seem
She
a
was
little
just
odd
like,
to her that they needed to stay there, but she wasn't going to turn her friend down. Like,
yeah.
it seemed like
Especially since,
a
like,
situation. Yeah.
yeah, like she and Harley weren't like besties, and she had never met Letecia
Mm-hmm.
before.
Mm-hmm.
So
Indeed.
she did seem to think the
Yeah.
whole thing was odd.
And then the cross didn't have anything to say about any of that. And
Cross had nothing,
which
Jury had
which
nothing.
well, that kind of got to me because why did the cross not jump up and just play up on the paranoia that Letecia was showing there and try to make it like she was crazy and not being normal?
Exactly.
But they
That's
didn't.
what I kept
And I'm like,
thinking.
that
I was
wasn't that
like,
a perfect opportunity to say like that's not normal
Tolini,
behavior? Because I'm
where?
thinking that's not normal behavior to text somebody from the back seat pretending you're the person in the
No.
front seat to the other person in the front. Like that's not normal. Like,
And
but
then
they
telling
missed that
someone,
opportunity. Yeah.
I hope you don't think we're murderers, and then talking about, I think they found evidence on me at the hospital.
Yeah, I know. Like, I don't know why they didn't ask any questions. Maybe they were afraid that in redirect, the prosecution would be able to make that more manipulative in planning. It could be
It could be.
because the way Harley's friend was saying it, it didn't seem that dangerous. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just
Right.
like, but if you let prosecution keep going at it, it probably could
Oh,
be
yeah.
very, very
Yeah.
manipulative.
And,
But the
I
jury didn't
do,
bring anything up either. Like, I
no,
just,
but I do give the prosecution, you know, kudos on that one because they knew
mhm.
not to push that girl too hard.
Exactly, exactly.
I think they knew that she might break just
Yep.
from the
And
stress of
mhm.
everything.
Well, a lot, people aren't used to testifying and everything like that. But
No, and
anyway,
she's young. So,
yeah, yeah. Well, then they go on to Nicole. Like after that, the jury had no questions either. So then,
no.
David Young calls Nicole Mobley, who
Oh,
lives in the Lawson Ranch neighborhood. Okay, and
yes.
she gets shown a picture of the neighborhood. She's able to make determination of the area where her house is, and she's asked how she met Letecia. And she stated that she had made a post on Facebook neighborhood seeking, it's like an app on Facebook for your neighborhood and people that live in the area, is to communicate just in a
Yeah.
small
It's like these little
portion
neighborhood
of Facebook,
pages.
right? So she makes a neighborhood page asking for clothing for a teenage niece who came to stay with them. And she received a message from a person who she thought was Harley based on how
Uh-huh.
the message was sent. And the message
Right?
was offering some of the clothing. But it was Letecia who brought the clothing to her. They made the arrangements for a drop off, and Letecia went to drop the clothing off, which was at the person's home. But she knocked on the door. And
Yeah.
at first, the witness right away doesn't think that's normal, okay? Because A lot
Right.
of times with these things, you just like if you're asking for
It's
donations,
just a
they
porch
just
drop
drop
off.
them on the porch. It's not like,
Yeah,
hello, I really want to get to know you, be my best friend kind of thing.
I
It's not like
know.
that. It's not like that. Okay.
Yeah, and
And
I love how
so,
she said, "I didn't wanna have a 20-minute conversation on the porch
yep.
in
She
cold."
she did. She opens the door, it's cold, they begin a conversation. She stated it seemed weird since they had never met before. So why she wanted to get into this long conversation, she didn't know.
Exactly.
And she also thought she'd be meeting Harley, the person
Yes.
she was messaging
She
there.
was
So the
expecting to meet Harley Hunt.
but she actually thought it was Harley Hunt, but she identified Letecia Stauch as the person
Uh-huh.
that she met at the door. So she was able to identify her in the courtroom. She stated that Letecia automatically started talking about too stuff that's too personal, all her personal life stuff, like
Yeah,
stuff
she
you
was
don't
like
talk to people about, like right out the get go.
I
Um,
love how, who was it? Young said, "So it was TMI, right?"
Yes, and she's like, mhm, and she made the
Uh-huh.
eyes. She made the
Yeah,
eyes, like the eyes you make, like, mhm. She said
yeah,
that, they were talking about all like as if they were really friends, and it seemed very off-putting, and she just kept trying to get out of the conversation. So then Letitia wrote her back after that conversation and said she forgot to send a pair of pants. Okay. And then sent another message on Christmas. She just kept at her, that she was going
uh-huh.
on a work trip. She started acting like they're friends, and
Yeah.
she was like, this is strange. Okay.
Yeah, said she
Um,
works for an airline, is going on a
yeah,
work
and
trip.
then yeah, and then she said she's going on this work trip and she wanted to know if the niece would come and watch the house and like, buddy up with Harley and they could hang out and stuff like that. It's not even clear if Harley and the niece know each other. Okay.
Right.
Anyway, the witness just was very off put by all of this. It's like, no way. She's just not comfortable sending her niece over there to spend time with anybody she really doesn't know. And there's just something, it just didn't seem right. There was no way that was
Uh-huh.
going to happen. She did not actually remember any type of contact with her in the group or without the group after that. Like they just
Right.
like she just stopped returning messages and just it filtered off. But when they found out that Gannon was missing through the Facebook page, because Letecia was there um posting on it, okay, she was asking for help if anyone knew anything about, where Gannon could be.
Yeah.
Um if they had seen him or if they could help find him. And so just to backtrack a little bit, she during the conversation with Letecia did mention that her husband was in the army of some type and that he wasn't home a lot, and that there was a
Yeah.
little girl in the home. Okay.
Yeah. She
Um,
did kinda jump around with her stories a lot.
And she was told, when you say that mentions weird things about conversations, what do you actually mean? Like, because they were like starting to say, what do you mean by that? Like, you keep saying that she was talking weird. What do you mean? I'm
Uh-huh.
like, and she said, I didn't know Letitia, but she talked to her like we were friends, like we knew each other for a long time. It was
Yeah.
very unsettling. Um, she said that Letitia talked about being frustrated with her home life and gave personal details about her home life that you just don't talk to people about like nonchalant like that.
Uh-huh.
And that's when Alan said, you know what I mean, like too much information. And she said, yeah, it's like, really with this kind of stuff, you just do a porch drop. Like anything else, it's just you don't
Yeah.
knock on the door and get into these really long conversations with people. Um, she said she's not really a socialite. She really wasn't looking to be anybody's best friend or anything, and it was really off-putting. But when
It
she
was.
heard about Gannon, okay, of course, being part of the neighborhood, she was concerned, so she talked to her husband, you know, and they decided they're going to go out and they're going to look for Gannon. They're going to be part of the search. It's dark, it's late, it's cold. They put on some more, appropriately dressed attire, and they go out and she's not able to verify the date. She's unsure about the time. I mean, she knew it was immediately, like within a day, that he was missing. Well,
Right.
they were all still out there searching. She remembers it was nighttime and cold, but she can't give the exact time of when they started searching. Well, they did check school parks, all by Gannon's house, all the ditches. They were able to verify, where Gannon's home address was, and she said that's where the information was being listed. She said there was about 40 people out there at that time, and they were using dogs and drones.
Uh-huh.
And that she spoke out there, and she saw that she spoke with others who were searching and everything. And then she really thought what really bothered her the most about the whole evening and being part of the search is that Letecia was not involved at all.
Letecia was not out there.
She did not go out there at all, but she did
No.
notice that a few people went up to the home and that Letecia would open the door and speak with certain
Uh-huh.
people. She did know that Gannon was part of the neighborhood post, with the picture. She doesn't remember any law enforcement cars being around the house at the time that they were
Right.
doing the search. She didn't see police cars anywhere. And that night they searched until the wee hours of the morning altogether.
Yeah, I think she said, like, around
Um
2 or 3 in the morning.
Mhm. They said, this was around like the 28th, this was like
Uh-huh.
that day, like immediately, like when you start saying, "Hey, my kid's message," and you get all your neighborhood involved. All right. They asked if she was continuing to follow Letecia, and she said, yeah, she tried to, but she didn't really want to get into a lot of the drama. She was really trying to focus only on the facts. So that
Right.
got difficult because the way Letecia would put everything out there, it was all very melodramatic. There was always a big story behind it. It was like, she stated plenty of drama and speculation was going on. Um, she said they asked if she followed the local media regarding the case, and she said that she did. And then she said that the night that Gannon went missing, she had sent a message to Letecia regarding where to look.
Yeah,
And
she was
then
asking her, like, "Where do you think he might be?"
yeah, do you have any specific locations that you need checked out? And Letecia blocked her
Blocked her.
because that's a normal response to somebody who's helping you try to
Right?
find your child in the middle of the night. Okay, just yeah. Wait, what? You want
Yeah.
specifics?
Let me
Block.
just block
Okay.
you.
All right. So the witness husband then sent Letecia a message about why did you block him, and when all we're doing trying to do is help. And they got no response.
And
Um,
there, during that, like, the view I was watching, Letecia was rolling her eyes
Yeah, I
in the
would
floor.
imagine because she's just like, I blocked you. Like she was probably happy about it. I don't know. But
Oh,
yeah. And anyway, Mobley is like, asked her if she saw the interview that Letecia gave on TV. And she said that yes, she noticed that she didn't face the camera. She spoke in past tense,
uh-huh.
worried about what people thought about her, made her want to know more about what happened to Gannon. So she got really interested in it. Like the
She
more she
did.
saw Leticia's reaction, she got more and more interested, like something's not right here.
Yeah.
And so she tried to reach out again via the Facebook pages, but she doesn't remember actually interacting with Letecia one-on-one anymore. But she did reach out through another neighborhood page and she got no response. Um, she then created a fake Facebook page
She did.
because she wanted to see if she could get Letecia to respond to her because she
Yeah.
could not understand why she was blocked. She was just one of those people with like, what are you trying to hide here? Like, did you do
Uh-huh.
something? Like, I do believe that she was suspicious of her right away. And
Oh,
I
I
think
think
that's
so
why she got
too.
okay.
And,
So
she
yeah.
even said, she said, "I felt like I had had enough of a conversation, even in that, like, 15, 20 minutes," that she said, "I felt like I could get her talking to me."
She did. She said like, she kind of went along with like her hatred of Landon, because this is how Letitia's posting out there, all
Yeah.
about Landon, the shadow that's supposed to be Gannon on the video, said that, she just kept saying, I believe you, like I understand, like this has got to be difficult. She just was commiserating with her. They went to a different texting app after that, from Facebook, because Letecia asked her to download the app so they could talk more privately.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's when the witness went to the police and took the phone and provided law enforcement with the recovery for all the screenshots shown. The witness verified them. Barbie Girl was the name that Letecia was using under this other app. The witness told her true name and went through. Letecia kept stating that she did not hurt or kill Gannon once she found out that who Mobley was. Like she knew her. Like once she gave her real name, that was
Mhm.
it. The witness, then Miss Mobley said that she needed to gain her trust, that she told her she believed her, and that many in the neighborhood were saying they didn't see him come in from the video. And Letecia
Right.
stated she could use the witness's help and could help her in return. Letecia told her that someone had been in the house and that stated that she had blacked out. Like, so she's like indicating a third person again.
Uh-huh.
So, Mobley gets uncomfortable. She gets a bad feeling. She asks about this person in the house, and that's when Letecia said that, she starts telling him the story about the guy who took the suitcase and some of Gannon's belongings and other things, and asked about speaking with others at church. And then she said she needed to ask her about telling people at the church. And she stated that food and water for people searching at the church and the field close by, that she was bringing things to them, and that's how this all happened. But
Yeah.
it was all convoluted. Like, Mobley said she
It
couldn't make heads or
was.
tails about what she was saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, she knew that Letecia did not like Landon, and she suggested that Landon send someone to get the kids and talk to Landon. And she
Uh-huh.
asked Letecia, how did that guy get into the house? Okay. And Letecia stated he was already in the home, or he came in through the gate. Okay. She said that she thought that this was the reason that Gannon was always checking the gate. Letecia
Yeah.
seemed also to be very, very
And I
much
thought that was a
against
strange
anything,
comment to make.
right? Anything to do with law enforcement. So anytime the witness mentioned, well, did you tell them this or that? And she would just like, no. She felt they were making her a scapegoat. They were just going to try to pin everything on her. Um, she just kept saying, I understand, and she kept trying to agree
Right.
with her, but she did try to say that there were people that were questioning, why any of the kids weren't with Landon and things like that. Letecia said that she Letecia just had lots of nasty stuff to say
Oh,
about
yeah.
Landon. Okay, but then also Letecia made some really weird statements. She told her, like, if I were the killer, Gannon would be close by, you know.
And I think that's the one that got Mobley the most. I
And
think
this
that's the
was
one
the
that
first
really set
time
off
she
alarm
even
bells.
heard of Gannon possibly being dead or
Yeah.
killed. Like, why would you say if you were the killer? Like, nobody's even said, like, we're still looking for Gannon. We're
Yeah, we're
still
still
looking
looking
for
for him.
Gannon. Right. And so she said something went wrong and thinks that maybe he may be out of state. Maybe they took him out, you know, I don't know. She started talking about him being moved around, that somebody took him, stated that, she then starts getting paranoid and starts saying, like, I really hope you don't say anything about our conversations to anybody. And she
Uh-huh.
kind of gets the idea that she's onto her. All right.
Yeah.
She felt that Letecia was trying to set her up with information to lie. And then Mobley just became the witness became a little bit upset when she's seen the pictures of Gannon, and she's asked to identify him, and then she knows him and stuff like that. And then she realizes that she's like talking to this person, and like she knew that she was talking to somebody that possibly could have hurt him, and like just was getting all these weird feelings about it. She kind of like broke down a little bit. Um,
Yeah, she did. She
mhm,
had emotional moments a couple of times on the stand, and, they were very good about making sure that she was okay.
mhm, mhm. And then she stated that she didn't have ring footage of a man. Like she asked, there was no ring footage of a man or Gannon anywhere
Right.
from her home. And she did meet with the FBI. She did
Yeah.
keep conversation going with Letecia only to help law
Mhm.
enforcement and the FBI. Um, she said that the polygraph mentioned in the text was fake, um, from prior, and Letecia asked questions. Um, Letecia asked her to call Al and tell him she saw a man leaving their home and gave a description.
Yes,
Um,
with a suitcase and Gannon.
right, and she said she wanted her to say, just say you saw them. You know, I'm telling you the truth. Just say that you saw them. And she
Yeah.
said to say that it was a man that was a Hispanic male, and she did say that she also reached out to Harley after she was blocked. You know,
Uh-huh.
but and they said, well, who did you speak to about the Whitney's trying to get you to, like, she said, I did talk to my husband about it. That I feel like
Yeah.
she wants me to lie for her. And that's when she got involved with law enforcement and the FBI and told them about the stories she was saying. Um, so basically, on cross, all they did was verify the dates and times on all the texts. They just went through all the text messages back and forth, because everything
Right.
I'm telling you is just like a crust of what they did. There's actually text messages for all these
Oh,
back and forth
yeah.
that they went through in the
There was
court.
several
What, right.
pages.
And so the jury really had no questions at that point
No.
for her. And our last one is Wilson, who is the reporter. Now, we played you the interview, and that's really
Wait,
all he's
no.
testifying to
Wilson
is,
was the end of day 5.
oh,
Mobley
wait.
was the end of day 4.
Oh, that's true. Okay, I'm skipping. Now we're going to Ignacia then. I skipped ahead. See that? I'm going to
That's
skip a whole day. No,
that's
I'm not
okay.
actually.
I
I'm
was
not
like,
actually.
"Well, I can go ahead and do Wilson if you want."
No, 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 no. We could skip, no, because they need, if we do anything, we have to do Ignacia. Like,
Yes,
okay, like that has to be done.
I know.
Um,
Yeah, if we do nothing else, we've gotta do Ignacio.
mhm. Because it's just, um,
Her testimony was so powerful.
it really was. Just,
And kudos to Mobley because I
yeah.
don't know how
You know
she
what?
did all that.
It takes a lot. It takes a lot to come forward like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, it really does.
and, it's like I keep seeing people saying, "She's the nosy neighbor you want to have as a
Mhm.
neighbor."
Exactly. So that concludes Friday. Now we're an hour and a half in. We're going to go 30 minutes more or 45 minutes more at tops. If we finish the rest of them, bless us. Bless us. But if we don't, we will cover the rest of them in more detail
We will.
on the next update. We will get through. But this
We
one's
will.
important because Susan
Yes.
Ignacio, and this one's difficult. And you know what? Um, I could do 45 minutes on this testimony alone. That's how
Alone.
detailed it was. But
It
here's the
was.
thing. We all know how horrific it was, right? We have already
Yeah.
all heard how horrific those injuries and everything were. Okay. So
Yeah.
let us just talk about the things we don't know, if in detail, is what I would suggest, just to speed things
Right.
along. But if anybody has any detailed question, go ahead and put them in there. Please at me so that I see it. Okay. I see a lot of new people came into the chat. I'm
I
sorry
know.
I have not been addressing you all individual. There's just a lot to cover right now, but I'm glad you're here. And please, if you have questions and if you think of anything after, like always, I tell you, hit the back of that video or send me a message and I will get the answer for you, or I'll have a conversation about it or
Yes.
find the information for you. Okay. So basically, Dr. Susan Ignacio is the medical examiner with the District 6 office in Largo, Florida. Okay. She was the one doing the autopsy. She's a forensic pathologist. Okay. And she has performed autopsies and external examinations. This is her job, to find the manner of death. Okay. It goes through lots of her training. She's really qualified. She has performed over 6,000 medical exams. There's no doubt she knows what she does. They swear her in as an expert. Okay. No problem. So in March of 2020, when the body came in, she was at the Santa Rosa County doing autopsy. So, of course, she's there. Okay. She's there, and so is Kelly Smith. Okay. So they're going to start with all of these photos. 144 through 180 are diagrams and photos just from the autopsy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just to go short, we know the body was in great decomposition. Okay. We know that there is sharp force injuries to his chest and his abdomen. Okay. His shoulder area, his hands. Okay.
Yeah.
It is the forensic pathologist's hands. Those are the defensive wounds. Okay. She testifies that the sharp wounds match up to defects that they find in the clothing,
Uh-huh.
prior. Okay. That he was wearing the clothing while he was attacked. Okay. Um, some of these injuries were quite deep. One in
They were
particular went through a rib, through the rib spacings all the way through,
all the
like
way into the intercostal muscle.
to show you that could have been, that had to be with some force, which is the only reason I'm mentioning that one.
Yeah.
That wasn't like, a get away from me jab. Okay.
No.
Um, most of them are in the chest area, in like a close up on the clavicle.
Yeah.
They did in the pictures blur a lot of his face. His face was partially
They did.
decomposed.
I
So
I actually was
anytime,
on a stream that
yeah.
did not show the pictures at all.
Okay, yeah, it would be better not.
They kept them
On
covered.
mhm. Some of the injuries were very hard to measure because of decomp. They're pulling apart,
Yeah.
and they're disintegrating. Okay, there is a photo of his left and his right hand, and they both have cuts. There are 4 wounds on the right of the hand, on the front and the back, and on the left hand also, all caused by a sharp object. Okay. Um, Basically, there was some misreporting through some people about the number of times he was shot. There is only
Exactly.
one time that he was shot that the bullet entered his body, and that it
Right.
went up through his what does it say, through his chin area up into his head. They
Up into the
recovered,
chin. Yeah.
yep, and they recovered that bullet intact from his skull, and they also found some red plastic parts of bullets. The
Right.
other 2 bullets that were fired, that they're saying that she fired the gun 3 times, is because 2 further bullets were found in the pillow, along with defects in stuff
Yeah.
in the pillow. There is the gunshots to the pillow. Okay. Other injuries. There's a cut on the back of his ear and his scalp, and a close up of that cut on the ear. Looked like it bled a little bit. Um,
Uh-huh.
they believe that laceration was caused by a blunt object.
Right.
Okay,
Blunt
the
force
skin,
trauma.
because they said the skin did not completely split, and it's like the backside of the right of his head, and it does believe that he was hit with a blunt object there. That's why she has the third charge on her of a different weapon used against a
Right.
child under the age of 12 because of the blunt object. They got the knife, they have the gun, and now they have the blunt object. Okay.
Yes.
The knife is considered that it may have jagged edges, like it may be a rough or serrated, because there are some lacerations with jagged edges, but they're not, like, at
Right.
this point, because of decomp, they don't know if those
It's
are
hard to tell.
actually from the knife wound or if they are from the blunt object. But yeah, but anyway, he was a 1 gunshot wound went right through the chin. The progression of injuries, she believes the sharp force injuries came first because
Uh-huh.
he could still defend himself.
Because of the defensive wounds.
Right. She does not know if the gunshot wound or the blunt force injury causing the bleeding in his brain came next, but basically that's what he died of. It
Right.
would have taken a period of time to cause all of the injuries that she counted.
Oh yeah, a long
Okay.
time.
Okay. So that, mhm, um, yeah,
It was not
that,
quick.
no, it was not. So basically, um, okay. The cause of death was the gunshot wound and the blunt trauma of the head. They are contributing factors with the sharp force injuries, which were causing major bleeding. However, she does believe that the gunshot wound or the blunt trauma, whichever one came first, causing the bleeding in the brain, would have been the primary. The manner of
Right.
death is definitely homicide. There is no
Homicide.
way that any of these injuries could have been caused by himself.
No.
Okay, here's the kicker. The whole reason that I'm spending time on this particular witness is because they did a toxicology report on the
Yes.
child. And they found in the toxicology that Gannon had acetaminophen, Tylenol at the time of autopsy, as well as hydrocodone in his liver tissue.
Yeah.
Hydrocodone is a prescription only a controlled substance used for pain or in cough syrup to prevent cough. It's indicated as highly addictive. It is an opiate. It is never prescribed for children.
No.
Period. Okay, let's just get that clear right now. Ain't nobody out there, no pediatrician giving that to 11 year
It's going to
olds.
give a
Okay.
10, 11-year-old
Mhm.
kid
All right.
hydrocodone.
So, depending on the dosage, it can cause drowsiness, lightheadedness, dizziness, problems breathing, lethargy, coma, and eventually death.
Right.
She testified it is extremely unusual to find hydrocodone in an 11-year-old. If it was
Yes.
for cough, you would use a different medication if prescribed for children. You would not use a hydrocodone
No.
prescribed cough syrup for an 11-year-old.
No.
Okay. So that was
That was
that was new.
that was
That
very
was definitely
telling.
new. Hmm. Okay. She did go on to say that all of the, like, through cross examination, this is what came out. The questions that were asked. Okay. They wanted to know the wounds. Okay. The wounds on the top of Gannon's head occurred before he died. She was never
Yes.
unsure about this. She's saying they occurred before he died. Injuries indicate this was a violent death. Yes. Seems like a random attack because there was no pattern to it. Injuries on different parts of the body and different types of injuries. The blunt force injuries would have been fatal by themselves. The gunshot was fatal as well. The bullet did not enter into the cranial vault. The bullet severed the spinal cord. The mechanism for
Yeah.
death with the blunt force injuries would have been hemorrhaging in the brain. Ignacio didn't inquire whether the hydrocodone was prescribed to Gannon. She did not ask questions, but the cross examination wanted to know if she talked to the investigators about that. But
Yeah.
that's not her job,
No,
actually.
it's
Okay,
not.
it's not the skull fracture. And what to say? They found it in an 11-year-old. Okay,
Eleven.
yeah. She
Yeah.
Okay, so she didn't ask if it was prescribed to him or not. Okay, the skull fracture could have been caused by the impact of the suitcase hitting the ground. This is true. It could have been from something like that. No stippling around the gunshot wound, possibly due to composition. She said she's unsure how far away the gun was from Gannon's body. She could not testify to how close the shooter may have been when it was
Right.
discharged because of the condition of the body. But she did go into great lakes to say what you would see if the body wasn't decomposed. Like, she was quite aware of what they were looking for, but she couldn't testify whether it was there or not based on the amount of decomposition that was there. She didn't
Right.
see any injuries to the lungs, which would indicate fatal sharp force injury, but that could have been due to the decomposition. Injuries to the chest cavity could have been fatal if left unattended. And she could
Yeah.
not
That was
find,
something she said.
yeah, and then they asked, and she said no, she could not find the pancreas due to the decomposition. It had
Yeah.
already puddled out. It was They were just like really going over all the, but I don't know why they want to know how close. I mean, the
I
shot was,
know.
and the fact that what does it matter whether the stabbing killed him or the gunshot? Because like
Right.
he was gonna bleed out from the stabbing
He
wounds,
would
and
have
there were
bled out
18 of them.
anyway.
He's 11 years old with 18 stab wounds. Some of them
18.
very, very deep in the chest cavity, all over
Yeah.
him, up near his clavicle. He's bleeding all over. He's gonna bleed. Okay, but
Right.
I guess that would take too long because the other injuries did happen, and either of them could have been the first one that actually killed him. And they actually were pushing on her because she couldn't tell whether it was the gunshot wound or the blunt trauma that did it.
I honestly think that I think it went stabbing, blunt force, and gunshot
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
he had bleeding in the brain with
Mm-hmm.
the blunt force trauma. Well,
Mm-hmm.
if she had already shot him, and we know that bullet severed
Mm-hmm.
C2 and C3,
Mm-hmm.
the spine at
Right.
that location,
Exactly. And
his
and
heart
that
would
would
have
have
already
caused,
been stopped.
yeah, it would have caused immediate. He would have been
Yeah,
immediately dead.
and he
But
wouldn't have had the
yeah,
bleeding in
yeah.
the brain then
Mm,
from blunt
pro-
force.
Prosecution went over, and through their questioning, they confirmed these bullet points with her. This is what she confirmed. It's very common to find victims in bodies of water, common to find victims killed in one place and moved to another to try to conceal a crime. Happens all the time. She said yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ignacio believed the location of the body was found in an attempt to conceal the cause of death. She believes that it was dumped that way so that it would decompose and that there would be
Right.
water and that they wouldn't be able to figure out what happened to the body. Stippling is powder burns on the skin due to the gun being 2 inches to 2 feet away from the skin when discharged. If a pillow was between the gun and the victim, there would be no stippling on the skin. 2 bullets were removed from a pillow.
Uh-huh.
These injuries were not random, they were intentional. They were targeted to the upper body and the head, an indication the intent was to cause fatal wounds.
Yeah.
All of the injuries occurred prior to Gannon's death, not after. So it wasn't like it was done after something happened. Okay. The jury did have questions for Dr. Ignacio. Question number 1. Can you determine how long the body has been decomposing or when the time of death was? And she said no. Once it started like that, she really couldn't get a good accurate date.
No.
During autopsy, was there any evidence of burn marks or bubbling of the skin? No. Due to decomposition, it would be impossible to tell. If there had been burns, it no longer would have been detectable. Most of his skin was not intact.
Exactly.
At the time, they talk about the condition of the body to be like in some areas just bone, in some
Yeah.
areas like just mush.
Yeah,
Like,
they were seeing
right.
bone in some area.
Mhm. How long does Tylenol and hydrocodone stay detectable in the body? Usually 12 hours after taken. The drug was in the body at the time of death. It was able to metabolize because it converted to hydromorphone. At the time of his death, the body started metabolizing the hydrocodone, but not all of it. The toxology sample was taken from the liver tissue. They took spleen samples too, but only tested the liver. Spleen
Right.
and liver results could potentially differ. As far as 12, that means, as far as that 12 hours means that it was already in the liver. So by the time he died, he had most likely taken it many, many, many hours prior.
Oh, yeah.
Right. In that, but the liver doesn't get rid of it right away. Like it was in the
No.
process. So it was not completely out of his body. So you're talking like any time from when you take it, like 4 to 6 hours to the 12, right?
Uh-huh.
But the pancreas, like they say, the spleen would have actually could have given a different level because it's a faster process.
It is a faster process through the
Right. So
spleen.
they would have been able to narrow down the window if they had that
Right.
tested, but she said that they didn't. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right.
But
So,
then upon his death, the liver just stopped
mhm,
metabolizing. So
mhm,
that's why it's still in there.
mhm. So after that testimony, which I apologize, it is quite gruesome, but it was absolutely necessary because here we have another piece we didn't know about. I don't know about you guys, but I had no idea that that child was drugged.
I
The
didn't
child.
either.
Okay.
Although,
All right.
now, Claire, some of the things that I had researched and looked at before, some of
Mhm,
the neighbors that actually saw Gannon, like the day before or that day,
mhm,
stated that he almost looked like he was in a drugged state.
mhm. Okay.
So
You
now
know,
that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah. I'm just going to go to the next witness, which is Al Stauch, and then with your
Yes,
grace, people, if there's not going to be any kind of a riot, what I am going to do is the rest of the witnesses for this day, I'm going to just record a little blurb for you, and I'm going to post it tomorrow, so that Kim and I can start with 2 full days of testimony again at the end of
yes,
the week, because I do realize 21 in one sitting is a lot.
it's a lot.
And I
And it's a
think
lot
it's
for you guys too.
right. But I do think it's very important to confirm with you how Gannon could have hydrocodone in his body.
Yes.
So prosecution immediately called Al Stauch, Gannon's father,
Uh-huh.
back to the stand. And he had reported that he had suffered an injury while he was woodworking at sometime back in 2019, around May.
Right.
He cut off the tip of his right index finger. And he was prescribed ibuprofen and hydrocodone at the time. It was
Yeah.
kept in his nightstand next to his bed. He never finished the prescription. They were not
Yeah, he
visible
said
to
he
the
only took a
children,
couple of them.
right? He only took a few, and he said they were not visible to the children, and he never would have given them to the children. It was not something that they did. But
Right.
in the room that he shared with, Letecia, they were available in the nightstand there. That's it. But they're not locked up. So
No,
that was that. Okay. Um
but I believe they were concealed even
mhm,
within the drawer.
mhm. Yep. So on that, we'll continue starting with Andrew Cohen in a separate video
Yeah,
because that was 2 hours and a lot of talking. And let's just look at questions and handle some of those for the next couple of minutes. What do you think, Kim? Let's
that
see what's
sounds
up.
good.
Okay, let me just see. Hey, Juju. Okay. Uh Oh, when they're talking about the decomposition. Welcome to Membership Book Lover 92. Thank you
Yes,
very much. Murder
welcome.
Minion. Welcome, welcome. That's really nice. Hey, thank you. Nice to have new members.
It is.
Answer. Let me get a discount on my murder room. That goes back to when she was at the hotel
The
at the
Ford Motor
Candlewood.
Company.
Right. Yes. Yes. Like Ford Motor. I've got to like yes. While I dispose of the body, let me get a
I
discount.
know. And everyone's like making notes. Use Ford Motor Company.
Mhm. Leah says she arrived. That was a while ago. Welcome. Okay. like, welcome. Nice to see you. I know, Jin. How do you lie to get a teaching degree? Like to get a teaching position? You think they're not going to check anything? What is with it? Like,
Exactly.
I don't know. This woman. This
I
woman.
know.
Uh,
I mean, Hillary actually had to show her
mm-hmm,
everything from college to get her teaching
mm-hmm.
position.
You know. Hey, here we go. Renee and me. Long story short, that woman is weird with a capital W. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yes. But she's not insane. Like she
No.
crazy like a fox, but she ain't insane. Like
No.
no. She knew what she was doing. Crazy. I agree with you. Vicks vapor rub under the nose. It takes that. They all say that.
It
Like all the
does.
students, the medical students and
Yeah.
everybody in the coroner's office. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, I used to work at the county hospital in Dallas where the ME's office is, and I worked pediatrics at the county hospital. So
Mm-hmm.
lots of times we might have easy weekends, like our ER, our
Mm-hmm.
PD pit was
Mm-hmm.
light on weekends because all the crazy adults were coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And we were told you can go over to the med school, do research, you can go over to the ME's office, they don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would go over to the ME's office and hang out
Mm-hmm.
lots of times before my shift started or after my shift ended.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was one thing I learned really quickly was Vicks Vapor Rub underneath the nose.
Just from the odors, it just doesn't smell
Yeah.
good down there at all.
No.
Angier says, I think there might be something wrong with me. I think my brain disassociates these type of things. Hearing the descriptions of these terrible things doesn't evoke any emotions in me. I mean, I know intellectually they're bad. I just don't feel any emotional reactions in my body. I don't think you're broken, Angier. I
No, I
think
don't either.
I think that you, like many of us, including myself, sometimes it'll hit me and I don't even know why, like
I
for some
know.
odd reason. All right. But I can
Yeah.
actually sit here and talk about the absolutely the most horrible parts of it logically trying to get to the answer of it. And I think that it's because of the way our society is now, how often we hear about it, and we are
Yeah.
actually a little bit desensitized. Plus, it's different if you're not looking at it. You're not talking to the child. You don't know the family. It is
Uh-huh.
horrible when you think about it as a child. And if
It
you actually
is.
drill down and think about, like Mrs. Cassandra said, the last moments of this child life, I'm
Yeah.
sure if we actually have those discussions, we're all going to be a weeping puddle of mush, like everywhere, because
Yeah.
you make it more personal. But when you're just talking the facts in what they are, especially clinically, when we talk, some of my what I really like to get into in the evidence is the forensic psychologist, is the forensic pathologist, are the
Uh-huh.
science of it all, and the
I do too.
psychology like of it all. So we're dealing with the horrible stuff a lot of the time, but I don't think
Yeah,
there's absolutely anything wrong with you at all. I think you're more like like many of us. There's many of us like that.
I think so
Especially
too.
anybody that's fascinated with true crime and serial killers the way we are. How could we not be? Like, I mean, even
Right.
just looking at Jack the Ripper or the John Bonet case or any of these unsolveds
Oh,
that we look
yeah.
at occasionally, any of the most horrific ones that have happened in history, which before I started doing the current true crime, I was doing historical, fascinating true crime of some of the larger unheard of cases out there. And
Uh-huh.
there were wild, like wild stuff,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you wonder what's wrong with people, like really,
I
what went
know.
wrong there,
That's
but
that's kind of where my mind goes is, what
yeah,
is wrong with that person?
right. But what we really want to focus on here, and I want to keep track of, is like not only just how the prosecution is laying out their case. We are going to do the rest of these witnesses for you, because what they're laying out here is they're trying to show that she had her faculties every step of the way.
Yeah.
She was making decisions
She was making
constantly,
conscious decisions.
constantly,
Mhm.
constantly. At no point was she in any condition not to, including when
Exactly.
she left the hospital and was going to go stay at her daughter's friend's house and had the
Yeah.
wherewithal to make sure that she could stay there. Nobody was going to see her. Like, she's using somebody else's phone. She's turning off tracking devices.
Yeah.
Okay. She doesn't know, she's not giving any answers to anyone that's interviewing her, and yet she knows she's the last one who saw Gannon. She told the 911 officer, the responder on the call, that she would be the last one to see him. So why
Mhm.
wouldn't they want to talk to her? Why is she running away from people and not talking to them,
Right.
when of course you're going to be the one, if you were the primary caretaker at that time because your husband was away, of course they're going to want to talk to her. Yeah,
Yeah.
it just screams loudly of guilt, not
It
insanity.
does.
It
And,
just
the decisions that she's making, the evasion, the
Mhm.
running from the police, all of that, those are conscious decisions in the moment. And that's not something that someone who is insane, or even maybe someone that even had a psychotic break,
Mhm.
would be able to do.
Okay.
They wouldn't be able to reason that out.
Yes, true. Mrs. Cassandra Landon, who is Gannon's bio mother, is in the picture. She's in and out of court. I think, is she
Uh-huh.
remarried? I know Al Stauch
She
is
is
remarried,
remarried, and
and
she
I
has
think
had
she,
another child with her
yeah,
current husband.
right, and she's remarried, but they do work together they do talk. I've seen pictures of them while they were looking for him. When Al Stauch, by the way, divorced her, like he was already in the process of
Boom.
divorcing her. Boom, he was divorced with when they found that body, man, it was done,
Yeah.
over, out. Like by April, all papers were signed. Okay. He was out.
Uh-huh.
He started to get out right after those phone calls in February. Where the stories kept changing and everything like that. Once all of that went through, in yeah, no, they
Yeah.
divorced.
Yeah.
But
But Landon has been there. She was not in court on either day 4 or day 5, I believe,
I
because
don't blame her
of the
because of
testimony.
the testimony that was going to happen.
Yeah.
There was pictures that were going to, Al Storch needed to be, because especially on day 5, because
Yeah,
of
he was
the
there.
testimony of the pathologist from the autopsy. He needed to verify where the medication came from,
Uh-huh.
um, and that he was not aware of Gannon taking it. Like that also, like he was not aware.
No, he
There would be
wasn't.
no, he would never give it to him. He would
Yeah.
never advise to give it to him. It's not something, and I'm sure he feels horrible that it was even not locked up. Like I
Right.
can't even imagine this man. He left him, with Letecia. He had no idea. He'd never think that she would do anything like that. Nobody. I mean, as weird as she is, you can't imagine doing something like that. But like I said, they're still going on trial, so I can't actually say that she's guilty. But I don't particularly care for this person very much at all right now.
I don't
But
either.
what can you
And
say? Mhm.
Mrs. Cassandra, yeah, as a parent, I don't know that I could sit through it either. I have noticed at times that both Al and Landon will get up and leave the courtroom for a moment,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
then they may come back. And that was one rule that Judge Werner had was if you get up and you leave the courtroom, you don't get back in until the next break. He is making that exception with
Mhm.
Al and Landon.
And it's based on the photographs and things like that and
Yeah,
stuff that they're doing, and
because he
he's
knows that
quite considerate.
there are times that
Yeah.
it's going to be too much for them.
Absolutely. But as victims of the crime, they have every right to be there for every
They
part of
do.
it. And,
They do. They are
um,
Gannon's
yeah,
voice now.
yeah. Um, it is surprising how much Letitia can look at it, and she does. Like she actually looks
She
at it.
looked at every autopsy photo.
It was kind of gross. Yeah, that
But
kind of bothered me. But,
yeah, but then other times she's hiding behind her hair
hmm
or puts her face down and won't look at anything.
yep. Yeah. Well, on that, let's see. Hmm. We're going to keep watching as much as we can. We've got Valo also going on at the same time. Tomorrow,
Yes.
though, tomorrow we're going to do something a little bit different. We're not going to talk about the trial. Yeah, Quiz and I are going to talk about other political legal things for a change. We're going to get a breath of fresh air tomorrow and talk about shenanigans, legal, political
Legal
poo.
political shenanigans.
Yeah, we're going to talk about political poo tomorrow with Quiz in
Well,
the
that'll
afternoon.
that'll be
Yeah,
a good break.
it is going to be like a palate cleanser
It
for
will be
me.
a
Thank you.
very
Yes.
needed palate
Okay.
cleanser, that's for sure.
Yeah, it will be a palate cleanser, and then we'll be back Thursday and Friday with more legal, and then Saturday we have, of course, our weekend shenanigans going on, or what the effery. We've got
Yes.
some stuff going on there. I do really look forward to that with Mrs. Cassandra and Wrecker, who seem to be my partners in crime, like rubbing elbows with me every week on that one. And anyone else who wants to join, just hit me up. You got a topic, you got something crazy going on, just let me know. But it's a busy, busy week. But I look forward to seeing everybody. Thank you for hanging with us and having the conversation.
Yes,
Um,
thank you,
and
everyone.
we will get the rest of these in one way or another. We'll get the rest of this outline of witnesses for you for the
We
rest of the
will.
week. But that was basically the gist of it. The rest is getting the inevitable evidence in as far as phone and documentation, calls, whatever, travel records, all of that detail stuff. But we'll get it all in there for you. Yep, all kinds of shenanigans. And thank you very much. And we will see you all shortly. Thank you,
Yes.
Kim.
Thank
You
you,
got any
Claire.
you got any last words before I just hit that amazing outro from Monkey?
No, I don't.
All right. Well,
So,
here we
good
go.
night, everyone.
All right. Good night. We'll see you all soon. Bye.